Uncovering the Mystery, The Cursed Archive, a deep analysis of the Russian sleep experiment. Step into the shadows with me, folks. Today, we're diving into something deeply unsettling. We're going to unpack a cursed documentary file, an archive that history tried its absolute hardest to bury. We are looking at the infamous Russian sleep experiment. But listen, we aren't just skimming the surface of the old myth here. We're tracking this thing all the way to its horrifying modern conclusion. I really want you to think about this for a second. If a human is completely deprived of sleep, what will they become? I mean, we all know the feeling, right? Tossing and turning for a night, maybe two. You get a little irritable, kind of foggy. But what if you push way past the biological limit? What if you entirely tear down that wall between the waking world and the unconscious mind? Does the mind simply break, or does it invite something else in? The Cursed Siberian Ruins, 1990. The Abandoned Lab. To answer that question, our explainer takes us deep into the frozen, unforgiving landscape of Siberia. Buried under relentless snow sits this rotting, abandoned laboratory. It is literally a place of shattered glass, rusted metal, and a silence so heavy it feels like it's crushing you. But, locals and explorers whisper that the silence isn't entirely empty. They say if you stand in those ruins, you can still hear voices. And this is exactly what drew a fiercely curious documentary maker named Vyskoda Basa to this forsaken place. But to understand what Vyskoda was walking into, we've got to go back. The terrifying 1940 experiment, Freedom for 30 Days of Wakefulness. We have to peel back the archival history to right around the time of the Second World War. Deep within a secret Soviet laboratory, a group of scientists set out to answer that exact horrifying question about sleep deprivation. And for this, they needed subjects. So they chose 5 doomed prisoners, men who were already facing the death penalty. The scientists offered them what seemed like a pretty simple deal. Survive 30 days without sleep, and you'll be granted your freedom. The men agreed. They were sealed inside a chamber, and a special experimental gas was pumped into the room, a chemical stimulant specifically designed to completely eradicate their ability to sleep. The descent into utter madness that followed was tragically well documented. Let's just walk through this timeline together, because it's chilling. From day 1 to day 5, everything was perfectly normal. The prisoners talked, they laughed, they held on to the hope of getting out. But on day 6, the shift began. Their voices dropped, they actually stopped talking to each other and began whispering directly to the walls. The microphones picked up these super creepy phrases like, "We can see you." Now, the scientists just dismissed it as severe sleep deprivation. But then, day 8 hits. One prisoner began to scream. And he screamed so loud and for so long that he literally tore his own vocal cords, losing his voice forever. And then, a deafening silence fell over the chamber. By day 15, the scientists realized they had absolutely no choice but to intervene. Silence and madness, days 10 to 14. There was this terrifying gap in the logs, absolute, unbroken silence from inside that gas-filled chamber. The panicked scientists couldn't understand it. 5 men were locked inside. Yet not a single sound registered on the microphones. The dread grew so intense that the researchers finally broke protocol. Leaning into the microphone, they asked the subjects directly, "Are you still alive?" After an agonizing few seconds, a voice echoed back through the speakers. But it was incredibly slow. It was broken. Actually, scratch that, it didn't even sound like a man anymore. The voice simply said, "We are no longer human." Wow. In that moment, the scientists realized their experiment had breached a horrifying threshold. They definitely weren't just studying biology anymore. Which brings us to day 15. The scientists finally unseal the chamber. The heavy doors pulled open, and what they found inside was nothing short of hell. The scene was one of absolute, unimaginable carnage. One of the prisoners was already dead, his remains scattered across the room in just a grotesque display. And the other 4? Well, they were alive, technically speaking, but whatever survived in that room could no longer be classified as human. They had completely mutated. Their eyes were pitch black and soulless. They had torn the flesh right from their own bodies. And perhaps the most terrifying part, they exhibited a complete and utter inability to feel any pain whatsoever. The scientists were absolutely paralyzed with fear. One of these surviving entities looked directly at them and delivered a line that honestly changes the entire context of this archive. It said, "When man sleeps, we hide, but when you are awake, we come out." Just let that sink in. It was a chilling realization that dropped the temperature in the room to freezing. This was never just a biological experiment. By stripping away sleep, the one mechanism that forces human consciousness to reset, the scientists hadn't just broken their minds. They had awakened something ancient, something dark, that lives right beneath the surface of our waking reality. Out of pure terror, the scientists executed the remaining entities, sealed the chamber, and buried the truth. Vizcota's arrival, 50 years later. But, as you'll see, the story doesn't end in 1940. We transition back to those frozen ruins in 1990. Enter Vizcota. He was a wildly curious, maybe foolishly brave documentary filmmaker. He had heard the rumors about the lab. The locals literally begged him, "Do not go there." But Vizcota? He believed fear was only a construct of the mind. So, he ignored all the warnings, packed up his gear, and hiked straight into the Siberian wasteland to find the truth. Step by step, Vizcota broke the seal of history. He finds the lab. He pries open the rusted, groaning metal door. Instantly, he's hit by this blast of freezing cold air mixed with the unmistakable, heavy, rotting smell of decay. As he steps deeper into the pitch-black corridors, the sheer silence of the lab wraps right around him. But almost immediately, he feels it. A heavy, completely unnatural presence. The distinct, terrifying sensation that he is being watched from the dark corners of the room. He is walking right into the exact same horror the original subjects felt 50 years prior. And then the silence breaks. Vizcota freezes in his tracks. Echoing through the completely empty, abandoned room is a phantom whisper. Clear as day, a voice says, "You have arrived." There is absolutely no one there, but the voice is unmistakable. The new experiment and fall. The possession. Drawn by some invisible force, Vizcota finds his way to the original gas chamber. As he stands before it, the heavy door groans and just opens by itself. Inside, it's pitch black, but staring back at him from the dark are glowing eyes. The spirits of the original 5 prisoners had never left. They told him, "You woke us up." The door slammed shut behind him. Vizcota's mind was instantly flooded with their memories, their unbearable pain, every single second of their torture. He screamed for them to let him go, but the voices simply replied, "Now you are ours." The spirits possessed his mind entirely, claiming him as their own. The terrifying symmetry of this archive becomes so clear here. The very next day, a secret intelligence agency that had been tracking the ruins found Vizcota. He was alive, but his eyes, they were entirely different. Recognizing the signs, they made a horrific decision. They restarted the experiment with Vizcota as the subject, and their new experiment on him tragically mirrored the 1940 victims. By day 5, Vizcota was whispering, "I can see them." By day 8, the screaming was replaced by maniacal, endless laughing. By day 12, he was tearing at his own skin. And by day 15, the transformation was complete. Once again, history repeats itself. The heavy, metallic clank of the chamber door echoes in the facility. It is day 15. The door opens to reveal what Vizcota, the brave, inquisitive explorer, has finally become. Standing in the center of the room, with pitch-black eyes and a horrifying smile stretched across his face, Vizcota looked at the new generation of scientists. Trembling, a researcher asked him, "What are you?" And Vizcota didn't answer as one man. He answered as a collective. "Now, we are 6. He was no longer a documentary maker. He was fully assimilated, the 6th entity of the cursed experiment. Once again, acting out of absolute terror, the scientists immediately executed him. They fired their weapons, hoping to end the nightmare once and for all. But as Vizcota lay dying, the entity inside him wasn't defeated at all. He looked up at them with that same horrifying smile and delivered a final, chilling curse. "We will come in your dreams." The final warning. Are you being watched? The lab remained sealed. The archive was buried, but the entities, they were released into our collective unconscious. This explainer isn't just a history lesson, guys. It's a warning. If you ever find yourself awake for days on end, if you start to feel like someone is watching you from the dark corners of your room, if you hear a faint whisper when you are entirely alone, you need to understand that they are out there. There aren't just 5 of them anymore. There are 6, and one of them is Vizcota. So I leave you with this thought to carry into the night. When you lay your head down tonight, remember why you must close your eyes. Sleep is not just rest. It's a biological shield. It is literally the only thing that protects you from them. Because when you refuse to sleep, that is when they find you. Stay curious, stay informed, and above all else, make sure you get some sleep tonight.